I'm Ric Edelman. They're the kinds of problems that keep you up at night. You've been sued because your dog bit someone, a past employer has lost your retirement account, or your kids just refuse to get serious about money. Well, here's the good news. We're going to shine some light on all these issues. Plus, we're going to ask Shark Tank's Barbara Corcoran what she's really looking for when she grills aspiring entrepreneurs. All this straight ahead on this week's edition of The Truth About Money.
Best-selling author and founder of one of the nation's largest financial planning firms, Ric Edelman.
A long time ago, the only way to get a picture of someone was to hire an artist to paint a portrait. But even in the age of cell phone photography, people still spend tens of thousands of dollars on a painting. And to find out why, I sent my colleague, financial advisor Brandon Corso, to talk with portrait artist Rob Liberace.
This is kind of an old, kind of classic Renaissance technique too, using this red chalk. So.
Why does somebody commission a painting or a portrait instead of going to Sears for, a family photograph?
I think, throughout history, the craft of portraiture and having a portrait done has always been, considered very important as a, powerful tribute to somebody. And I think there is a little bit more expression, passion that comes through in a portrait done by an artist. Look at these shadows going.
How long does it take to do a portrait, a painting of somebody?
The quickest commission that I've ever done was probably about an hour. Most of the commissions that I do take several months to do, very involved. Drawing is, that sort of involvement with the subject.
Let's talk affordability.
If you went out to, let's say, a local gallery, you could probably get a portrait for $250. If you go to the absolute upper tier, you can expect to pay up to $150,000.
Do you have them sign a contract?
That's typical, to have some kind of contract which sets down the scope of work, what kind of painting it will be, and then also installments, what you pay at a certain time. And then if, either the artist or the client decides that they want to step back from the commission for whatever reason, there are clauses that are put in there that just keep everybody kind of safe.
Do you talk to your clients about insuring their work?
It is a pretty important consideration, but I'm not an expert on that. But I know that
they're talking to their financial advisor and insurance agent to make sure it's insured properly.
Yeah, there. I think you are done.
That is very cool.
Okay.
Rob, I had a great time. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
That was a pleasure. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, and this is amazing, by the way, so thank you.
Not a problem. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks.
Brandon, never saw you looking so good.
It was a lot of fun.
How long did it take him to draw that?
He did it in less than an hour.
So it doesn't seem to take all that long all the time.
No, but if he's doing a true commission of a painting, maybe an oil painting, he'll have his clients that sit there for hours.
Over a period of many weeks, I would presume.
Yeah, and even months. He likes to meet his clients, to really get to know them, to know what he's going to be focusing on as he's painting them.
Well, this is a big commitment of time. I mean, is it possible that he can work from a photograph?
Well, he can. I asked him that question because with children, if you have a 2 or 3-year-old, you don't think they're going to be sitting there for hours.
Right.
So in that case, he will work off a photograph.
And what about pets?
And I asked that question from time to time. He's done some animals as well.
So I would wonder, most folks would think that this is either antiquated, nobody's doing this anymore, or ridiculously expensive and beyond most people's budgets.
And that was my thought. I thought this was for the ultra wealthy, but as Rob pointed out, you can find somebody to commission a painting for several $100s or many tens of thousands if you're dealing with somebody as talented as Rob.
And I have to believe that this is going to be not only far more memorable, but for the family, far more valuable as a true heirloom.
I think it's just much more special. It's not more valuable in that you can go sell it, but it's more valuable in that it means more to you than a photograph would.
Brandon, thanks a lot.
My pleasure.
When do you have to start taking money from a Roth IRA? at age 65, age 70, by April 1st of the year after you turn 70 and a half, or never. Take your best guess, and we'll be back with the answer in just a few minutes.
At a recent conference, investment advisors were asked just one question. What did they think about children and money?
Let them see you spend it right, and hopefully they'll pick up those habits.
Don't spend as much as you make.
I think it's very important to teach children the right way to spend money and to save money.
Parents love their children, and they sometimes spend too much money on their children, and they forget that they're their children's example.
My father got me a checking account and a credit card at a very young age, and I learned to manage my own household budget, and I learned to save my own money for goals when I was 12, 13 years old.
What you can teach kids about managing money is it is much more difficult than it looks, but you are never too early to begin.
Teach them early, start them early, learning the value of money and perhaps the value of earning and saving.
When you're raising children, you should always make money a little bit scarce. Allowances work well. Make a child have to decide between what they want and what they can get.
Education. The earlier, the better. Have them understand what the value of the dollar is.
When do you have to start taking money from a Roth IRA? You never have to take your money out of a Roth IRA.
Cindy's calling us from Maryland. Hi, Cindy. How are you?
Good morning. Fine. How about you?
Great. How can we help?
Okay, this has been aggravating for us for a few years now. My husband used to work for a major company based out of Delaware. We won't say the name. But his division had gotten bought out. And he had an annuity. And they sold that annuity to another bank. And we can't find his annuity. And we tried going through the IRS to get, his tax return for that year. And they say they don't go back that far. And one of the gentlemen that works with him says, well, you could start drawing on that. And we have two daughters getting married in the near future. And we kind of wanted to, use some of that money to help pay their wedding.
All right, let me ask you this question, Cindy. Is the company that your husband used to work for, is that company still in business?
Oh, yeah.
Has he contacted the company to ask them about the status of that account?
Many times.
And what have they said?
We're going to open up a case for you and we'll get back to you, and they never do.
Okay. Then what you need to contact is a government agency, but you're contacting the wrong one. It is not the Internal Revenue Service that will be of any help to you. Instead, you want to contact, can you guess?
The Department of Labor.
The Department of Labor. It is the Department of Labor that regulates company retirement plans, not the Internal Revenue Service.
Okay.
So contact the Department of Labor. In fact, the Department of Labor makes it really easy for you to do this. Go directly to their website, dol.gov. And on that website, you can actually file a complaint right there, very simply, very easily, very quickly, to tell them exactly what you've told us. And I think you will be surprised at how quickly the Department of Labor jumps in on this.
I'm going to ask him. I could have swore we went that route, too. I mean, we've been trying this for years. And what happened was we had moved, and we had a fire, and they moved us again. And I think because they couldn't find where we had moved to, we stopped getting the information from this bank.
That's that's the most common reason is the orphan accounts. We see it all the time.
Right. Yeah. People just all of a sudden they move and you forget to update address, or you forget about notifying the company, and then they lose track, and then they do what they do, which is file it.
Exactly. You are not a priority for a former employer. And that is why we always say, rule number one, when you leave an employer,
take your retirement plan with you.
There is absolutely no reason to leave it there. When you have a plan with an employer, it's usually very limiting in how many choices you have, a dozen, 2 dozen. And if you move it to an IRA, you open yourself up to really thousands of choices, but we all know why people leave it there. Procrastination, they're busy, their life, the kids or the grandkids are more important. But this is a great example of why you want to take control of that money when you leave your job.
Right, because who knows what's going to happen.
We had a situation recently where my car was in the shop, so I borrowed her car, and then like an idiot, I took this turn wrong and I hit the curb and I messed up her tire. So I say, look, babe, I'm sorry. There's a bubble on your tire. I'll fix it. I'll get you new tires. She goes, cool, no problem. She calls me up. It's going to be $350. I'm like, $350 for one tire? She goes, no, you got to get two tires. I'm like, what do you know? I broke one tire. She goes, no, you can't just replace one tire. You have to get two new tires. And I'm like, no, you don't, okay? Like, suddenly you're a mechanic? Okay, really? Because I bought one tire many times. I have no money. I bought one windshield. I bought one sock before. We don't need two tires. You don't need to drive straight.
Hi, Rick. My question is about mortgage refinancing. With interest rates at historic lows, my wife and I were considering refinancing our home for a 15-year mortgage, and that would put us right at the time that we expect to retire. So the house would be paid off, and we'll roll right into retirement. Are there any rules of thumb that you have for mortgage refinancing for maybe 15 years as opposed to a 30-year in our set of circumstances?
It's not a rule of thumb. It's pretty much an absolute. Refinancing in today's environment makes a great deal of sense. Don't assume that you won't benefit by refinancing. Talk to your lender first, and they will likely be willing to refinance your loan for you because they know if they don't, you'll go to a competitor who will. Many people who would love to refinance can't because they're underwater in their mortgage or their credit record has been damaged as a result of the economic environment, but it doesn't hurt to ask. So talk to your lender, talk to other lenders, and see if you qualify for refinancing. The government is releasing lots of new programs to make refinancing easier and easier to help break the problem of today's real estate marketplace. So definitely explore refinancing. Many people who are able to refinance are noticing that the interest rates have dropped so much that they can go from a 30-year loan to a 15-year loan. And even though a 15-year loan costs more, it's so much cheaper because of dropping rates that they'll not only still save money, they'll get rid of their home in half the time, which is the premise you're dealing with. Don't do that. Stay with a 30-year mortgage. A lot of folks take the attitude that, wait a minute, based on my age and based on when I plan to retire, I can shift to a 15-year loan, still save money on a monthly basis, and get rid of the mortgage by the time I retire, and I'll own the home free and clear. Sounds like a winner. It's not. In fact, the real winning strategy is to refinance to a new 30-year loan instead. And here's why. The 30-year loan is going to be even cheaper than the 15, which is going to free up hundreds of dollars a month for you. Also, most of the payment of a 30-year loan is interest. On a 15-year loan, that's not true. Only about 2/3 is interest, which means you get a bigger tax deduction on the 30-year payment than you do on a 15-year payment. And that extra tax deduction makes that loan cheaper yet. So if you were already going to save a few $100s, now you're saving even more than that. Now you're coming up with $200, $300, $400, $500 a month that you can use to throw into investments. And if you do that for the next 15 years, you'll reach retirement in year 15, and you'll say to yourself, well, golly, I've got 15 years left on this loan. You've also got 15 years worth of savings. So much so that I bet you'll be able to take that money, pay off the remaining balance of your 30-year loan, and you'll have 10 or 20 grand left over in free cash.
Until things are weird, it's job market. Everybody suddenly started liking their job again. Like, where did all these team players come from? 4 or 5 years ago, nobody was happy where they were. You hang out with somebody at a party, you're expecting that part of the complaining conversation. Man, I can't stand these people. One of these days, I'm gonna raise up out of here, steal some Post-it notes. Now everybody's sending their boss love letters via email. Bosses are arrogant about it right now. Like, they just feel like they can break off some disrespect at a moment's notice. I go to ask my boss a question the other day. I'm like, Ted, can I ask you something real quick? Silence. You ever been ignored so hard you start doubting whether you actually said anything?
Do you think, realistically, that most people in this country are going to be able to retire comfortably and are going to be able to give their children a college education? That's realistically in the real world here today. Thank you.
Yes, no, don't worry about it. Here's what to worry about, and here's why. Can people afford to retire in comfort? Well, that word comfort's a qualitative term, not quantitative. What's comfortable for you might not be comfortable for someone else, and vice versa. Most Americans, the average American household, for example, have an annual income of less than $34,000 a year. So for them to be able to retire solely on Social Security, well, that just might be enough for them to be able to retire comfortably. So probably the answer is yes. Most Americans will, shockingly, surprisingly, be able to retire in comfort, according to their definition of comfort. Will they be able to send their children to college? No, but then so what? Nobody ever said that they needed to be able to do that. In fact, that's one of the big myths of America. It is not a parental requirement that you pay for your children's college education. Oh, it's certainly a parental preference for both you and the child, but push comes to shove, you save for your retirement and let your child figure out how to pay for college. That means something really important. Your child might not be able to spend $50,000 a year on a college degree. Maybe they need to instead go to college much less expensively. Let the child figure that out. And in the end, why do I say none of this matters and instead there's something that does really matter? It's simple. Worry a little bit less about the macroeconomics. Don't worry about what's going to happen to all of America. Will they be able to retire? Will they be able to send their kids to college? Focus on whether you'll be able to retire and whether you'll be able to send your kids to college. Get your financial plan in shape, and if everybody did that, then everybody would in fact be fine.
If your dog bites someone and then you get sued, what do you think the average insurance settlement is? We'll be back with the answer in just a few minutes.
It's quite a resume, straight D's in high school and college, and couldn't stick with any one job. So Barbara Corcoran went into business for herself. She borrowed $1,000 from a boyfriend and started a company that she later sold for tens of millions of dollars. Along the way, she became the queen of Manhattan real estate. Now she appears on the Shark Tank, the TV show where entrepreneurs pitch their ideas, hoping Barbara will invest in their company. I talked with her in her favorite city, Manhattan. Shark Tank is 4 highly successful A-type personalities, very successful in their own individual careers, and you spend your time on that program looking at budding entrepreneurs and deciding whether or not it's worth investing in their businesses. There are very vivid dynamics between the personalities of the 4 of you.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. I know how I feel about everybody.
Well, and this is what it comes across on screen. Is that genuine? Do you genuinely dislike some of the colleagues with whom you appear on that program?
I would have to answer honestly, yes. It's not that I dislike them personally, but I dislike some of the ways they deal with people. You have to realize women and men are very different in business, enormously different, and they shop for businesses differently. The men are always shopping the product, no doubt about it. For me, I'm shopping for personalities. I don't even care if someone has a bad business idea. If I can hook into an entrepreneur that's got the makings of a great, successful business person, we could always revamp their product line. We could send them in a different direction. It's buying talent is how I look at it. You know, I'm looking for someone who's great at failure, honestly. I'm looking for someone who could take the heat and keep getting back up and say, hit me again, I'm back at you. I'm not an advocate of buying into people with confidence. I want the people who are insecure. They run the hardest.
You were insecure. What motivated you to prove to others that you were able to pull this off?
It was my mother who told me I was a genius because the nuns at school told me I would always be stupid because I couldn't read or write. And so proving then helped me prepare for being an entrepreneur.
And you had a particular challenge. You were dyslexic.
Yeah, well, today they call it dyslexic. In my day, they called it stupid. They told me I was a lovely child, but I had nothing to say. And of course I had nothing to say. You need the answers in school, but you know what I had? I had first-class training to be an entrepreneur. I sat there all day and daydreamed. Do you know how smart you get when you have 8 hours a day to daydream? I had more things going in my mind than all the other kids had in the arithmetic and the reading. Not a bad start for real estate businesses.
And at what point did you overcome dyslexia?
Do you know what? I don't think there's a point you overcome dyslexia. I'm still overcoming it now. I am the best preparer I have ever met in everything I do because I'm so afraid that someone's going to catch me with my pants down or that I don't know what I'm talking about.
At the beginning of your career in real estate, could you have gone on as an entrepreneur to the Shark Tank seeking funding and walked away with a deal?
I would have not been bought on Shark Tank. The men would have written me off as a cute little something in New York City who was trying to build a nice little shop for herself. I blew my first commission check for $340 on the fanciest coat I could possibly buy, which was irresponsible, but the best thing I could have done, because in that coat I felt like a big shot walking around the streets at 23 years old looking the part. But you want to know, inside from 23 to 63, let me tell you, I've never had the confidence. You know what's great about an entrepreneur with no confidence? They somehow get through the finish line because they're running to prove something.
You have developed what clearly is one of the most successful real estate businesses in what clearly is one of the most spectacular cities in the entire world. You sold very few pieces of real estate yourself.
You don't have to be good at everything. I'm really good at picking people. I'm a great cheerleader. I'm a great leader. You know what? So I couldn't sell real estate, but I hired all these amazing people that were 10 times better than me. And if not for that, I would have never built a giant business. I was substituting for the talents I didn't have, and that's all you have to do if you're building any business.
Delegate, surround yourself with great people.
And dedicated people, loyal people, people made out of great cloth.
The first thing I think people would look at watching you on the Shark Tank is how could someone who is an expert in real estate buy a business that has nothing to do with real estate?
I might say that was exactly my thought. And I was wrong on that thinking. Every business is identical. They're all the same because you need an entrepreneur with enormous passion. You need somebody at the lead who can sell, because if you're not selling your business, nobody's going to buy it. You can't hire that at the get-go. And you also need someone who really can convince someone to come along for the ride. And that is something that is true of every single business.
Barbara, thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
If your dog bites someone and then you get sued, what do you think the average insurance settlement is?
$1,000.
Maybe $1,500.
Basically between $250 and $500.
The correct answer, if someone sues you after being bitten by your dog, the average insurance settlement is $26,000.
Before we go, a few thoughts about today's show. A few minutes ago, you saw us talking to Cindy on the radio. She was trying to locate a lost retirement account. But I think that she'll find it, but I almost wish that she wouldn't, that it would stay lost for a little while longer. Why? Well, did you notice what she planned to do with the money if she found it? Yeah, she said they wanted to spend the money on weddings. The average wedding costs almost $30,000 these days. That's 30 grand for a 4-hour party. That's money that could be used for a down payment on a house or used for college or retirement. Well, you know they say that fools and their money are soon parted. Cindy was parted from hers once already, and it looks like she'll be parted from it all over again. Looks like she could use some truth about money. I'm Ric Edelman. See you next week.